Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, July 11th, 2024, and we're called to order at 1:11 p.m. And I will go ahead and do roll call. Terry Majewski is here. Joel Ireland.
Here.
Savannah McDonald.
Here.
Ricky Riojas.
Here.
Andrew Christopher.
Here.
And Jan Mulder.
Here.
Great, thank you. We have a full house of 6. Item 2 is approval of legal action report minutes for the meeting of July 20th, 2024. First of all, this is incorrect. It should have been for June 20th, and I do not have that ready yet. I don't know if some of you heard, but there was an incorrect motion associated with a case and some other stuff going on, but it's not that much of a problem that it's late because Michael listened to the recording and got information associated with the proper cases before the letters were written. But I'm not sure why it didn't get into the LAR. Okay, so you'll get that at some point to review, and we'll review it at the next meeting and approve it. Okay, item 3 is historic preservation zone review cases. We review these under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0/historic district design guidelines and the revised Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines. Case 3A is TS SGN 0524-00002 for 444 East University Boulevard. Excuse me. This is for installation of a replica sign and designation as a heritage landmark sign. It's a full review in the West University Historic Preservation Zone. It's a contributing resource and the rehabilitation standards and the rules for historic landmark signs. And we did receive some information just before the meeting on a motion and the things that we need to review, because some of you may have not been on. We haven't had that many of the signs lately, so you may not be that familiar with it. So, Jody, how would you like to proceed?
Well, I can tell you what happened, what the comments were for Armory Park. Let's see. Once I
for the no, you were on the sign.
Well, it's saying.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. This is what happens. I should have just waited until Monday to come back to work.
It's okay.
Let's see, there it is. Okay. Now we're on the signs. Now I'm on the right minutes. Okay. So the project was heard at the June 18th West University Historic Zone Advisory Board. And one day I will find this too. They motioned to accept the sign as proposed with a horizontal cantilever attachment as required to meet the structural requirements that does not damage the existing stucco relief. And it was approved, recommended for approval with a motion of 6-0. So just for clarification on that, because I'm all about using my hands. In the historic picture, they actually have like one bar coming out and one bar going up. And so they are changing that. So it's just a straight attachment coming out. And so they being West University recommended the approval with the straight attachment going out. And that's how they have it drawn on their plans. This is a sign that is being recommended for a heritage landmark sign, and Heather Thrall, our sign guru, is here. She is the email that I forwarded to you earlier today came from Heather. So I'll let Heather explain it because she's much better at it than I am. Oh, go ahead, Heather. You have to unmute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Heather Thrall. I work in Planning Development Services. You might remember me. It's been a little while since we've gotten an opportunity to get together. Thank you. I would like to just reiterate for everyone here, I am differently abled, so I would like to be able to lip read when someone's talking, especially if we're going to be communicating about a technical aspect. I can hear, but it's a differently abled situation. So I just like to reiterate that. May I please have permission to share my screen, Jody?
Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
So Heather, what you're saying is that it would be better if commissioners would be on their video if possible, so you could read lips.
Just when we're going to be talking to one another, if it's a technical issue, if it's just a minor question, it might be just fine. But I also may ask to repeat something, etc. If I may repeat something, that's what it's about. So please bear with.
Of course. No worries.
You're made a co-host, Heather, so you can share your screen.
Thank you kindly. Let me choose the screen and let me see if you can see it when I get there. Okay, I'm not sure which screen you can see. It doesn't.
It's the one with the sign in the upper right, and it's got some specs. Yeah.
Okay, so this sign that we're looking at, let me go to the map first and just make sure everyone's familiar with the location for this. Can you see the map on the screen? Okay, we're at University and Third, and the subject property that we're talking about is the Time Market property. It's at the southwest corner of University and Third, and it's zoned HC1 in West University Historic District. The address is 444 East University, and it's right along the streetcar line. And the signage that we're going to be talking about today is the request for what's going to be known as a heritage landmark sign as a replica sign to honor a sign that was there at one time. This is the north facade of the building that we're looking at. Can you see this on the screen all right?
Yes.
Thank you. So the sign that's there now, the owner would like to remove this sign and would like to replace it with the proposed sign that is known as a projecting sign. I'll get to that drawing in just a second. And what they'd like to have is just one sign then on this northern elevation. So this is the vicinity that we're looking at putting this particular sign here. It would be classified as a replica because it is not a restoration. It's not something that you and I have seen before in prior reviews when we've done these. So the sign, let me go to the diagram. Okay, can you see the diagram again?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the diagram shows an irregular shaped sign. It would have neon illumination for two of the wording components, the words time and market. And then it would also have a clock in the top component of this. This particular sign would be 60 square feet approximately in sign area. And a heritage landmark sign, the sign area does not count towards the allowance for the particular location. So the size is not a concern in the way of what the district allowances are for a historic district if it's designated as any form of a heritage landmark sign like this one is being requested for. It's a projecting style sign, but it would not extend it, and it cannot extend in the historic district above the roof line that's adjacent to the sign. And it would be right close at it, but not particularly above it. I'm going to scroll down to the next particular sheet because I do want to point out one other aspect on this. There's another roof line that you saw, a red tiled roof line here. And this sign would also have a distance on the bottom of it from that roof line, approximately 5 inches. So it would not touch. So some of these aspects I wanted to point out because that's going to be considered for your review as part of this. And if you choose to conditionally designate it as a heritage landmark sign replica, one of those conditions might be how it would be mounted and that it would not touch the roof and that it would not be extending above this roof line in any manner. There are some elements to consider as well when we're looking at a heritage landmark sign designation in any format. There are some things that we discuss overall. One of them would be obviously the character defining text. So traditionally, when we looked at classic signs that were being restored, some of those text components were required to remain on the sign at all times, and there would not be a change to that. In this case, as a replica, all this lettering should technically remain on the sign. Whether or not you wish to designate both the word time and both the word market as factors to retain on the sign and also be included as character defining text is up to your review. If you also designate this as a replica heritage landmark sign, there are other considerations too in the way of the character defining features. So the shape of the sign structure, the fact that there's a manual clock, and then perhaps the neon coloring that would be within it, and any kind of colors, black and white or black and I think it's more of an Irish color to the sign could be potentially what you'd like to designate, including even the structural mounts and how it's mounted. Any of those elements might be something that you would wish to characterize as character defining features. And then also you would vote to say whether or not the treatment plan for this, which is basically the installation for it, is acceptable. And so those are the components that you're looking at. I wanted to reassure you, some of these aspects that we look at when we're doing a review are things that you also consider in this meeting. One of them are the guidelines for the cultural, historical, and design guidelines. The sign shall exemplify cultural, economic, and heritage distinct to Tucson. The sign shall exhibit extraordinary aesthetic quality, creativity, and innovation. The sign is unique, or it was associated with a franchise, for example, that was unique, or surviving from an era in bygone times earlier in the United States history. So we've got also the other thing is that the sign shall retain the majority of its character defining features. And that's why I mentioned that with character defining features and character defining text, those are components that should remain, especially with a replica, they should remain with the sign if it's voted for in that manner. This replica also, it's not newer than 1961. And it would only be installed on this premises. It's not anywhere else found in Tucson, and it was never an off-site sign like a billboard that would have been mounted here. So all of those things were already looked at for this review. So the only aspects, if you accept this proposal, are the character defining text, character defining features, the treatment plan is acceptable, and then any conditions related to this, such as having a plaque saying that this is a replica, and having a temporary revocable easement to be extending over the aerial right-of-way use. So those are the factors. Pardon me if I'm talking quickly. I'm happy to repeat anything, but let me know if you can see this all right, and if you would like me to share anything else or move anything else on this diagram, please do let me know.
So do you have an image, Heather, of the original sign from a photograph or whatever?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, there is a document in here that Jude and his team have assembled. And this sign, there was no date specific to this, but we do know, given the fact that it was, look at the age of the vehicles in this and the facade in this building, quite old.
Prior to 1961, so that's the point, correct?
Yes, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, and now in terms, so on this original sign that appears in this image, it's basically a pretty close replica, is what we're seeing. And we don't really know what the colors were back then.
I would have to ask Jude to step in to do a little bit more discussion with you. But with my background, with what I have, I can certainly scroll to share the plans as Jude is discussing.
Yeah, could you do that? Yeah.
May I please introduce formally Jude Cook of Cook & Company Sign Makers and Wendy Martin from Cook & Company Sign Makers. She's also in attendance with Jude today.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm talking now?
You're talking.
I'm talking.
Good.
as far as we can tell, this is about 1940s. We had expanded a little bit beyond just clear red neon at the time. We haven't really made a complete decision on neon colors yet, but you know, I'm almost sure that the word market probably was clear red. Something that I don't think we called out, but the neon, the clock would have had a ring of neon inside the bezel to make the face glow. And a lot of times those are blues or teals or even red. The word time, you know, might have been clear red, it might have been white. I don't at this point want to commit to those colors, but I think we're going to be in that kind of a palette. The color of the sign, I've experimented with some colors here, and I printed out some samples, which I just did about an hour ago. A couple of things to think about. When we're looking at a black and white photo, you know, we've got a light field, which could be any number of colors. We've got what looks like black, that could be dark blue, could be green, could even be red. I think the dark color is probably dark blue, black, or green. The word market, because it doesn't look like solid black, makes me think that those were some other color. I don't know what they were. What we talked about during the neighborhood meeting was, you see the wall spot on the right side there that says Time Market?
Yes.
You know, that's probably a few layers down as far as paint color. But what I want to do, Heather, are you pointing at it? Yeah, go to the wall spot, not the sign itself, over on the right side there. No, other right side, that one. That wall spot. I'm almost sure that there's some of that color hiding underneath the paints. What I was gonna do is go down there and actually do some scraping and sanding and see if I can actually get down to what that base color was, because I kind of think some of those colors probably tie into the sign. And that's, you know, I know that we've got some dark colors, we've got a light color. I put together about 12 different variations. I really don't want to commit to anything until I've had some more time to spend out there researching. What else? 1940s even colored mounts. The mounts are going to have to be engineered to current standards, and so we don't have a hard and fast on it, but they'll be as clean and simple as they can be, and they're not going to impede. There's some color. You want to go to the front of the building? Yeah, and if you can zoom in on one of the photos down below. You know, they've got those brick lines in there. We're gonna work around those. That cabinet sign that's up there is gonna be taken down. You know, it'll be touched up, patched, and painted, but we won't impact any of those details on the building. And it was already discussed, we're not going above the roof line. And I think we've got 11 foot or so up from grade. We'll be within that realm. I haven't got hard measurements down there yet, but we'll stay within those specifics. Anybody got any questions for me?
I have a question. So what West University moved about the attachment? Is that what you're showing here, the straight attachment going out, or did they want it different than shown in your drawings?
Mostly they just don't want us to impact the architectural details. So what you see is in between the brackets, there's those two pop outs, brick line right there, and the other one down below. Those two represent the brick line. We're staying away from there. I'm pretty sure engineering is going to make us do through bolts with plates on the back side to support this thing. And I may end up with some guide wires going back to the building just because we've got as much projection as we've got.
Terry, this is Joel. Can I ask a question about that attachment?
Go ahead.
Why are we going away from the angled iron that is shown in the original picture? Braces.
My gut feel is I don't think it's going to be enough to hold this thing up based on what current engineering typically does to us.
Is it possible that they mounted it to that like that bottom where the T is at, that's mounted to that off
Oh, yeah,
porch
I-
part?
I think they did. I'm not totally sure that
Okay.
is something that engineering is gonna let me do.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's amazing how well these signs stayed up in the air back in the day. You know, the engineering we just recently did on the Caruso sign was way beyond what it was originally done 70 years ago. So to answer your question, Joel, I think engineering is gonna dictate what we do, though. If they would entertain that triangle shape, I mean, I'm gonna show that to them, but I doubt that's what we're gonna end up with.
Okay, so you are gonna ask, but I understand. So obviously, I like the original as much as possible, but if that's the case, that's the case. So yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. Appreciate it.
I think that's what I'm gonna have to do.
Now, I wanna say, I do appreciate your willingness to go look at that original color. I think that sign is probably under that paint there.
I think there's a real good chance, and I've done so many of these, and it's interesting the mysteries you uncover when you start digging.
Yeah. Good job.
I've never done a building before, but I bet you we'll find some color under there.
Good
So,
job. Wait, yeah.
yeah, my question is for the motion, we can't really say, here, I lost my notes here. We can't really designate a color, but we should probably say something like, based on analysis of the paint, that's a painted wall sign, right? And that one facade.
Right.
And then,
Pardon, can I ask to see your face?
oh, sure.
Sorry.
Hold on. Yeah, the reason I took it off because I didn't want to have trouble with bandwidth. Yeah, so I think we'd have to be general in the motion to say, something like recognizing that we have a black and white photo to work from, that we leave it up to the sign fabricator to use the existing, some wording that says, based on his analysis, the best colors, because Jude's not going to make it some crazy color again.
No.
Could we just specify in a motion that whatever final colors they decide on, as long as Jody and Michael are okay with that, and that it matches whatever Jude finds?
That would be a good solution. Could you do that, Jody?
Yes.
Okay, because it's silly to come back, because I think what he's proposed so far for trying to match, all you can see is really the tones. Is that the right word?
That's all we got. That's right.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's see, what else do we need to talk about? We need to talk, who has questions? And then
I had a question.
Go ahead.
So, Jude, you mentioned that you might have to put lead lines where would those be at?
Oh, guide wires. I typically would be, Heather, can you give me something other than that drawing? One of the concept ones. Yeah, the one down in the lower right hand corner. Yeah, that one. Okay.
How's that?
That's good. So, Ricky, what I picture if I need to do it would be, oh Lord, probably about the level of the bottom of the clock on the street side, Heather. So out a little farther. Typically, what they would do right on the end. Typically, we would have a piece of angle across there, and have guide wires that run back to the building, right there and the other way, on both sides. Right, running from right about there back to the building on both sides. And they're wire cable, they're fairly innocuous. Generally, you have to look for them if you're gonna see them. Do you have a picture of the original sign, Heather, down there?
Yes. And the other question would be, do you need two sets of these, or are you talking about just having one set of guide wires at the bottom of the clock running back? Let me just.
I really think one.
Okay.
I know with engineering, we're gonna have a pretty massive. Structure up there anyway. I can't tell, but it looks like right at the bottom of the M in Market, there's a little ghost of a line right there.
This thing right here, right?
It runs more horizontally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really faint, right there, and go to the right.
Oh, I see.
I almost wonder if that's not.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
I mean, you gotta work with what little ghost you have. You know, with that bracket, I mean, with most of the stuff we've done, I see this stuff and, you know, it's got fairly minimal attachment points. And then they did cables to help stabilize it. And, you know, if engineering comes back and they don't require it, then we might not worry about it. But we put the Carusos back up. I got 4 cables running back from that, and I have a monster pole that it's mounted to. So, you know, it's out there and there's a certain amount of wind load. I just don't want the thing ever moving on us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I have a dumb question before we move on. So it's the same on the other side, basically, it's just reversed.
Yes.
So 2 clocks.
Yeah, you
Double faced.
yeah.
That was gonna be my question, because time would be on the opposite side, so how does that get resolved? I feel like we need to see an elevation of that, right?
The drawing is actually.
Yeah. Can you ask that again? I'm sorry, I was.
Oh,
thinking-
well, time would be reversed, so the profile along the edge is gonna be slightly different. It's gonna be on the other side.
What she's asking is on the other side is
Yeah, I mean, the T will, the profile of the sign will remain the same, but the word time will be reversed, so the T's where the E's at, and the I's where the M's at, and the T's where the E's at on the other side. I didn't even bother thinking about that. Yeah, other than that, there wouldn't be any other change. And it doesn't affect the shape of the sign.
That was
Jude,
my
I have
other
a
question too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Savannah.
There's a view up of the side of the sign. Can you run us through that? Because it looks like in the historic photo that those black details wrap the edge. And
Right.
they're not like applied on each side, right? They wrap around. And so I guess I would want to see that replicated.
And that's what we're doing. They actually, Heather, will you zoom in on my drawing right above you? No, the one up above. Not right there, right there.
This one.
Yeah. There's, well, one side is, one side isn't. There's those rectangles are supposed to be centered on the outside border of the sign, and they're actually 3-dimensional, squared up, and they'd be folded metal that actually comes out and goes around the end of the sign. Heather, will you show me the actual old photo?
Yes. Give me just 1 second. Let me move it over.
Yeah, and then zoom in on that.
Right in here. Okay.
Right.
Sorry, it's a little blurry, but
Little blurry, it's a lot blurry, but what I picture is those, excuse my description, but basically a shoebox with a slot on it that goes in and slides over the sign, and so it actually comes out and then goes outside the shape of the sign and go back on. They're clip mounted, screwed in. To me, they look like just decoration. I don't think there was, I can't see where there was anything else. You know, I don't think there was any neon detail. I mean, the photo is so big, and we have searched. That's the only photo we've been able to find of this thing. We'll continue to look in the process here, but that's what I've got to work with.
Terry, this is Joel again. I have one question while we're on this picture.
Go ahead.
Under the E, it looks like there's almost a triangle running back to the building.
Yeah, Joel, that's a good catch. In looking at this scale, how do I describe that? What I'm almost thinking is, and I just really saw that today, was I think that I think the top of the clock where the circle is a full circle, but the wrap where the word time is at almost cuts back in and doesn't, that circle doesn't, how do I describe this? The circle doesn't stay.
It's angled right here and
I feel like
Yeah.
this angle that comes back to that circle and then finishes. I can probably draw up, I don't know if we can show it.
Yeah, I think the triangle that Joel is talking about is one of the banners on the flag garland
these-
behind.
Oh, you know, you're right, Savannah. See, she's got surprise tonight. So the banner is making the bottom half of that triangle, and that's just the building I'm seeing back there.
But
Oh, yeah.
Joel, were you asking about this part right here?
I thought you were at.
Yeah, but that is a change.
If you go straight up from 2 o'clock, it almost looks like, but I think you're right, Savannah. I think that's the building back there defined by the banner and the top of the building. Yeah.
I'll just note that Andrew put in the chat a really cool picture of the front, that sign front on to show that wrap. Did
Really?
you want to say any more
the
about
chat?
that? Yeah,
How do we see that? Huh?
click on
The-
chat.
Chat?
click on the
It doesn't
chat.
show the full sign, but it gives you a little more detail on how it kind of meets the roof and the bottom of it.
Oh,
Can you
I
guys-
see it. Yeah, let me open it and bring it over to the, can you see it on the screen over here now? I
No,
get it.
It in the
I
chat.
think close and open again.
Okay.
Good job, Andrew.
He's always got something to show us. It's good.
Open file.
We like
I don't know if it's gonna, because I'm opening it off of the screen and moving it, I don't know if you're able to see it. This is such a cool picture. Are you guys able to see anything?
I can
Yeah.
just that I pulled up. I mean, maybe Andrew, we can share the screen with him and he can bring it up
Okay,
or email it or something.
let's see. Let me stop sharing. Maybe Jody could try to share. Well,
Oh.
oh, there we go. Yeah, see, can you see it?
Right.
Yeah.
That is great. It does have border neon.
Oh, wow, what a great picture.
Jude
Where
also.
did you find this?
I was like, yes.
Okay. Okay, so okay, here's what I think you said. I'll go back to Savannah's question. Those black pieces that are bordering the thing, I think those again, how do I come up with the right word? Basically like 3/4 of a cylinder where it's actually a rounded wrap and not bent square. So it's like you took a pipe and cut it into sections and opened up part of it and slid it onto the sign. And then as you look at the end of the sign, it's got a piece of neon that runs vertically centered on the outside. And if it actually goes around the sign, does it look like it goes across the bottom?
You can see it across the
Yeah, you
bottom.
can see it right here.
It looks like the black is actually more recessed, right? As opposed to something applied.
I think it could just be painted, as in it's just flush with the body of the sign, but it's a little hard to tell.
It's a little hard to tell. In looking at the original photo. Oh, how could they have done that? I need to study that a little bit. In the photo, in the fuzzy photo we've got, it looked to me like I was seeing the black projecting beyond the outside body of the sign. But it could be a recess and that the gaps in between might actually project. Interesting.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I want that picture.
I'll forward it to you.
You have it?
Oh, you have it? Well, yeah, because I knew there was
That's the first time I've seen that. I don't know how it got away from me.
I'll send it to you guys,
Okay.
so you just so.
I saw it somewhere.
Okay.
So
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. One thing I was gonna do, but I don't think we've called it out here, is more of a nod to the outdoor lighting code. Was, if you look at the letters, the KET on there, they were just painted on the sign and neon was on top of it. I was actually doing channel letters with clear faces on it to stay within the outdoor lighting code.
did you guys understand that?
No.
Or did you hear it?
Yeah, so
do,
it's not really, it's not really a replica, exactly, right? Because the way that the sign, the letters will be depicted. Is that what you're saying, Jude?
I was doing the letters, yeah. This is typical of an old 1940s sign. I felt like I needed to kind of, as a nod to the outdoor lighting code, actually make dimensional letters where the neon sits inside, they have a clear face on them. I've done that on a lot of the ones we've done specifically, and because this is a replica, I don't have to do that. Heather, do you got any?
correct. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And vandalism
Okay.
is the thing. I mean, we built the cactus and we've got the same kind of letters on there. We've had very little trouble with vandalism on it because it's protected. And that was one of the other things that I was looking at as far as, you know, it's a college area.
But the cactus sits on the ground. I mean, this is like storefront, so it's got further protection.
Actually, the cactus is higher than that.
Oh,
The cactus is 15, the cactus is 15 feet above the ground before the
Oh.
sign starts. Oh, yeah, it's 30 foot to the top.
Oh, but
So-
you're paying better attention to
Yeah,
that.
well, only because I built it, so yeah.
Hey guys, I need to be able to concentrate. Sorry, there's a lot of conversation and it's hard for me. So can I just ask a couple of questions so I can make sure I'm staying on track for my understanding? So we were just talking about how and can you see the screen that I've got here with the plan view
Yeah.
of the sign, right? So Jude was just talking, if I understood him correctly, because I couldn't lip read, but I could hear what he was saying, that in the time frame that he was looking at, that wonderful photo that Andrew Christopher provided, that the letters were actually painted and that the neon was on top of the painted letters. But what he was proposing to do on this diagram is he was proposing to have these cut out, basically a metal formed letters with the neon within each one of those letters. And so they would be raised off the surface of the actual sign as you would see it versus having painted. But he was also going to have these little clear covers that would go over those metal letters. So that way the outdoor lighting code was honored by current standards by having a clear cover over the light source. However, as a heritage landmark sign, even a replica, we don't need to do that, because if it's designated today as a heritage landmark sign replica, then it may still have open-faced neon like that. And it is also allowed in that manner as this designation without having to have those covers. So it's up to you on how you want to proceed with that component, with that discussion. But I just want to clarify, so I understood that we were debating in this discussion as to which was more fashioned for this designation, right, Jude? Whether or not you wanted to propose which one to them, painted with open neon atop or embedded within letters.
Right.
And what the neon colors would be up to your findings later. Am I understanding this correctly?
That's what I think we're headed toward, yeah.
Okay, but then are you also talking about neon around the edge now? Like this picture that Andrew Christopher provided shows that neon, going down the sides and of this of the cabinet. Would you be proposing that now also in this?
I think we need to consider it. You know, today was the first day I had seen it. Border man's nice. It tends to be one of the most problematic things we deal with on a historic sign is that it's vulnerable. You know, it seems like it's more in place to get damaged than anything else. But I can certainly do it if it's the wish of commission.
Which, the more original type or the more modern type? Which is more difficult, the making it the painted lettering or the other?
Channel letters are more work. And I was doing that just largely because I felt like the outdoor lighting code, because I wasn't sure when we submitted this, what qualification it fell under. So we could go, I can go either way. You know, I don't think we're gonna have that much trouble with this kind of a sign because it's a quieter neighborhood and Time Market's got a lot of followers. I don't think we'd have much trouble. So I think we could go either way as long as it's okay with the city end of it.
Well, I
The
think
other
that's-
aspect is it would be shutting off though at midnight as well.
Right.
Okay, well, that's something for us to think about. And also, it says that the sign shall display a conspicuous text or plaque using a template provided by the city that indicates the sign is a contemporary reproduction, but it's not a reproduction, it's a replica. Oh, I see what it's saying. Okay, so what is that text and where would that go?
The text would be provided as a template that I would be drafting up for Jody to also review to make sure that we've captured the spirit and essence of the information that has to be placed on this type of plaque. It doesn't have to be large, but it does have to be large enough that either A, it's put on the sign, or B, it's got to be somewhere nearby.
Well, where do you propose to put it? I mean, does it often go on the sign itself or?
This is the first replica that the city of Tucson has ever seen. So I would like the committee to really discuss it.
If I can jump in, my gut reaction is it's probably too high to be ledged decently on the bottom edge of the sign, and it's got that stair step. I would be looking at mounting it on one of the columns on the right or left of the door if I was going to make a recommendation.
Terry, can I just interject? I
Please
think that's
do.
a good suggestion, but I also, I think we should consult the owner about where he or she might like the sign, you know?
Oh, Peter, I mean, I think
Peter here, or?
would be flexible on that. Because he cares enough to go to the trouble to do this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So anyway, okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, who else has questions?
Sorry, I still had a few.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and it was mostly just aligning with the original, and looking at the original photograph. There's kind of a nice space around the clock face itself that's consistent, and I think you're right. I think Joel is right that building edge just does cut back. So I think we'd want to see that updated to show that. Does that make sense? We see like around the clock, there's kind of like a white border all the way around. And then on the east edge, it cuts back. So yeah, exactly. So I think we'd want to see that represented. And then I just noticed too, the word market is right and left justified. So the M is in line with the others. So I'd want to see that as well.
Yeah, and that's important to say in these sign discussions.
Does that make sense, Jude? The M, I think the M needs to squish, and then maybe the profile needs to cut back a little bit, and then just a little more space between the word clock, or sorry, the word time and the clock, just to better match that.
Yeah, I can take care of that.
And then I like the idea of just, and it's nice to have that other image where you see a little bit of the backside. It's kind of proof that there is a replica of the design on the backside.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Do we all agree, we should all weigh in on, for me, the character defining text would be time market, right? Both the words.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. So who's next with questions? Or did we kind of, go ahead.
I'll just clarify that I'm following the bouncing ball. So what Joel and Savannah are talking about is to, rather than have that circle continue around where it's white, but to cut it back by the black and then have it go down and come back in. So there's actually a discontinuation there. Is that
That's my interpretation too.
versus having that full radius go around? So to more nearly mimic what we see. Yeah, and I am comfortable and agree with Savannah's comments about the lettering and spacing of the elements. And then I just wanted to clarify, I think it was in West University, and I haven't gone back to look at the drawings, but it sounded like at least one of the drawings had the sawtooth going in the opposite direction, but that's all getting straightened out on the plans. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
We've got that.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you. I don't have any real questions. Thanks.
Okay, so who are we missing?
This is Andrew. I would add maybe just take another look at the stair stepping on the bottom and make sure that matches as best that we can. It looks a little different between the two photos that we have. But the steps seem maybe too many and too small on the drawing that we have. I think they're a little bigger and there might be one less. The only other thing I wanted to clarify was that West University didn't want them to impact the two horizontal stucco reveals. But did they say anything about the one at the top where it looks like the original sign was kind of mounted in that diamond?
They did not.
Okay.
The primary one was just the lower box. It's essentially a box with the stucco lines that stand proud. That was the immediate impact. It wasn't really the one.
Okay.
And
I think-
we're not gonna be touching that anyway.
Okay.
I
I think
wonder,
if you did have a support coming out that was coming out of the center of that diamond, I think that would be appropriate because that seems to be how it was. And then, whatever you have to add in addition to that, would probably just avoid the other details as best you can.
Yeah, we'll do that.
how long is that time market sign that's currently there? How long has that been up there?
Are you asking physical size or how long it's been there?
Well, how in there, because I'm wondering if when you head off, if those ridges are going to be damaged anyway from the mountain.
My gut is it's gonna be pretty minimal. I mean, they typically put those kinds of cabinets up with, 6 to 8 fasteners. And I don't think they would have gone into I think they would have gone into the body of the wall between those. So, and it's when stucco painted, we can patch it, get it back to where it was.
Okay. Do we have enough discussion to talk about what a motion would look like based on the template that Heather provided with the motion text? I mean, we talked about some of it, like character defining text should probably say time and market, both time and market, one of those for the motion. Do we agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have to talk about, shape is shown in the historic images, the neon and the colors to be decided by the fabricator based on research, or to be approved by Jody's office, something like that, because we're not gonna have to come back, right?
Or a minor review.
I don't think you do a minor review once or can we?
Madam Chair, you can do a minor review as a follow-up if desired, to just make sure that the people are comfortable with
Yeah.
that, the committee is comfortable with the selection, but otherwise you may certainly ask.
The reason I
Jody's
suggest
office.
that, Terry, is because it gives the owner and WUZAB, the staff in Tucson, Michael and Jody and our
us, yeah.
chance to
I
have
think
input.
that's good, yeah. I think that would be good. The neon and the colors to be
Come back
based
for a
on
minor
further
review.
research and then brought to a minor review, something like that. And then do we need to state that it's a manual clock rather than, so it's not confused with a digital clock? Is that what you're thinking, Heather?
Yes, I know it sounds kind of
No,
redundant, but
no, I think I get it, yeah. And do we need to say that it's a two-faced sign?
a double-faced,
Double-faced, yeah, because it's not really shown. I mean, it's not really,
right? It's something that we assume, pardon us, in the sign review, we assume it's a double face, but yes, I understand. And maybe it would be also clarified, double face reverse image, something of that nature, where it's the same image, both sides, but you're seeing one direction versus the other.
okay.
But may I just clarify, we are going to go ahead and vote that heritage landmark sign replica, that it does meet the criteria thus far? Is that the,
Yeah, I'm just trying to
okay,
go through the motion so that when we do it, we're not flailing all over the place, because we've already spent, I can't even see what time it is, nearly an hour. And so the treatment plan is, I mean, there are a bunch of things that we've mentioned that don't, well, we still, how do we feel, commissioners, about the lettering, and the neon? Like, do we want the original kind, the painted on, or do we want what Jude was thinking of?
I kind of like what Jude is proposing better, but I know that's not maybe quite true to how it was originally, but I think it's a little higher quality.
Well, it does say in the on page 2 of the printout, when I printed out what Heather sent, it says a replica HLS shall utilize historical materials and technologies or visually matching contemporary materials and technologies. So I personally feel that both cover it, even though I favor the painted, but not, not wedded to that. What do the rest of you think?
I think I'm with Andrew that I like kind of the more contemporary approach, just because it is a replication and that provides some distinction and more response to today's code. But I'm also happy
Yeah.
both ways. I don't know. Still not a strong feeling one way or another here.
Yeah, that was mine too, Savannah.
Yeah, me too. It is a replica, so.
Well, and that's, they don't say that there has to be distinguishing things, to make it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But they do require that that there is some kind of signage that says it's a contemporary reproduction. So this would be, and someone really thought through this whole code thing, because I like that visually matching contemporary materials and technologies, because on signs in the past, I think, Jude, you weren't able to reproduce some of the stuff or get some of the tubing or something like that. I forget, because over the years we've looked at a number of these. So I'm okay with that.
Pardon me,
but-
commissioners, I'm gonna get up for just a minute. I really need to get up and ambulate, so please pardon me, but I do need to get up. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
I just didn't want to be rude. Thank you.
Should we wait, Heather, or can we?
No, go ahead, please, please discuss. It's okay. And when I get back, Bobby can also drop something in the chat for me, but I just need a couple minutes to get up and move, okay?
Go ahead,
I'll be
go
right
ahead.
back. Thank you.
So another question I have is the treatment plan with the items we discussed today is acceptable, because aren't there changes from what is shown on these PowerPoint slides or in the application? You know what I'm saying? Haven't we asked for some clarification or additional things in the treatment plan?
Yeah, like the additional space between the clock and the start of the time.
Yeah, and maybe that would be the treatment plan is accepted subject to the following conditions, and maybe that's what we need to. Is that where it would go, Jody?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
well,
can you-
there's already a list started of our already possible conditions, right? The not
Let's talk-
extending above the parapet, revocable easement, all that. So we would just add to that list, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you note not extending above the parapet, I would clarify that you mean the center of the raised parapet, because it's a little bit higher there.
Sure.
And then, do we want to say something about a minor review for that? The text of the text and the plaque, once Heather and Jody work on it, and that could be with the minor review for the colors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then that item of taking the bite out of the radius, I mean, that's very definitive.
Yeah.
Once we see it.
Yeah, so maybe that is when we have to talk about the character defining features, the shape basically as shown in the two historic photographs, right? Does that cover it in terms of that base with the number of indents and so forth in the circle where it's cut out? Okay. So does somebody want to run through what a motion might sound like before we make it? Savannah or Andrew?
I've made some notes by, I guess I'm trying to figure out the order in which to put it, right? We indicate the aspects as character defining first off, right?
We followed the
The
motion.
character defining to text being
Mhm.
time and market. The character defining features are the shape, neon colors, and clock. And then we say the treatment plan is accepted subject to the following conditions, the ones that are listed, but then also that the neon and the color be finalized based on research and be approved by minor review, that the clock be manual, that the sign be double-faced reverse image,
Mhm.
that the profile be adjusted, as well as the text and spacing to better match the two historic photographs. And then I'm missing, what's the verbiage for the lighting and the neon of the text? Because it's a kind of a different take, right? Do we want to say something about that?
Dude, what is that? Tell us how you would word that. The way you want to do the neon.
The way I would handle it is I would do the research on the color on that wall spot, and then assign colors to the sign, and then pick it. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna have clear red on the word market. Time, I'm thinking, could be, keep coming back to white on that, or one of the warmer whites. the glow around the neon clock. Boy, blues and teals are good, and I can make a recommendation for that once we get to that point.
No, I think that's not what they're talking
It
about.
was,
painted
yeah, the
versus
paint, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You see, that's what we're looking for wording on. If it's not the painted on lettering, it's what would you call it?
The new code compliant.
As far as it would be, there would be what are described as pan channel letters with clear acrylic faces.
And so it's a pan channel?
Pan channel letters 3 inches deep with clear acrylic faces.
Is that PAN channel? PAN?
Pan like a pan you cook in.
Hand
With
channel letters.
3-inch deep with clear acrylic faces?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow, okay.
I thought that the double-faced reverse sign image and the manual clock go under character defining features instead of under like the treatment plan is accepted subject to the following.
No, I think that's what, Savannah was saying. So character defining features are shape, and then she clarified, right?
Yeah, no, Ricky makes a good point. I wasn't, that's like, that was kind of my question. Do I describe that like the clock is as manual?
Yeah,
But
up there.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because where's what the character defining features are, and then really that subject to the following conditions, I think his treatment plan is accepted subject to the following conditions. And we should probably also mention, I still don't understand if West University so sign is proposed with horizontal cantilevered, whatever, attachment, right? So a straight attachment going out. So is it basically we're approving the attachment is proposed?
Correct.
Okay.
I may have missed it, but there was that discussion that where the time sign is, it actually is not a full circle. The time portion where it's black stands proud, then
It's
the rest of it is, oh, I don't know, you can't see that, but yeah.
no, basically I've got a circle here. This wraps, stops, and comes back down.
Yeah, after the E, it stops.
Yeah.
And then kind of goes in and then it goes around. So it's actually not drawn correctly there.
Yeah, I think we got
We
that.
How do we verbalize that?
I tried to sketch it in the chat, but yeah,
I
I don't know. I just dropped it in. That was just for my own. I just don't know how to describe that.
Well, we talked about just having it, match it was one of the details to match to the photo.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, can we
Because
just say, yeah, just like you're
that gets
saying.
to the spacing and then the stair stepping, the sawtooth, as Andrew pointed out, that,
And that's all part of the shape.
right.
Yeah. We could call it the perimeter profile.
That sounds good.
I see.
The circle.
I'm really
And
glad
those-
that Savannah's doing this.
I'm doing this.
I wish I
too.
could just draw it all the time, but it's words I'm bad with.
No, it's the tough one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you talked about the letters. Now the letters need to be, where did you cover that?
The font looks good. It was just the M wasn't justified with the M was a little too wide. But I could just say adjust the perimeter profile and the text font and the spacing to better match the two historic photographs, or should I be more explicit?
No, I think that's fine. And text
Okay.
fonts to match two historic photos.
Mhm.
Okay.
Harry, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go.
Okay, what
It's
time is,
2:15, 2:15.
okay, thanks so much.
Okay, thanks. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Thanks
Bye.
all.
Yeah, Jen had to take her husband to an appointment. Okay, so are we ready to go ahead? Do you think
I
we've,
I think I'm close, just,
oh,
but
and
it's
that,
a,
again, the mounting conditions would go at the end of that thing where they've got them, see it?
cantilevered attachment as proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all good with that.
Horizontal cantilevered as proposed, right? Horizontal. Okay,
Okay, is it that is the fact that it's a double face sign reverse image, is that character defining or is that a condition?
I think it's character defining myself.
Okay.
Oh, I would say that's a condition.
You think it is?
May I just interject for just a moment? So
Yes,
in the
please.
past, character defining is something that's like unique to the actual sign. So in this case, to me, a character defining, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, the shape. That's immediately what got to me was a unique, irregular shape. And I love the way you described that, by the way, as perimeter profile. That was pretty cool. But the other thing that stuck out too was that there was a manual clock. So that to me was unique to this particular sign. It's something that we'd want to
Put up there.
call out
I
to
think,
keep.
yeah, I
But
think
I
it goes.
think, yeah,
So
but I
then it-
think that the double-faced component would be more maybe a condition, if anything, but to me it's assumed. So I do take that for granted, but you're welcome to clarify that if you would like to in the condition. I think that would make it make sense.
Okay. Does that make sense, Savannah?
Yes. I think I'm ready.
Okay, so if you want to just go, go for it, and then somehow we need to say, okay, one more question. When you talk about the character defining features and we get into the neon and the colors, is that where we talk about after the research we want to do a minor review, or is that a condition?
Isn't that a condition?
It would be a condition that you do a minor review. But ultimately, the colors could be a character defining feature. Because the colors are gonna be based on the sign, but that's gonna be a result of the minor review.
Right.
Based on the research, yeah.
But that also create an issue, like if they do, like they go to figure out and do research on what was there and they don't get like a sufficient answer, but our condition lists the color as a,
Right,
yeah.
right. May I please follow up on what Ricky is saying?
Yes.
Is that if we have this component called out, if you distinctly call out the colors right now as a character defining feature, then that has to stay that color. You've got to have it revised sometime. But if you maybe say, indicate that the neon, the use of neon in trim and in or in the text is a character defining feature, that might be the way to address it.
Heather, you
And then
glitched. Can you repeat that again? You glitched.
that the use of neon within the text is a character defining feature, but leave the color of the neon that's on the sign in any aspect to be decided at the minor review after the research from the sign contracting results.
I just worry about what happens if Jude doesn't find what the actual colors were, because then we list that as a character defining feature, but it's not, because it's just based on Jude's interpretation of what it should be.
Well, right, but basically,
I
if we
think-
mention it in the character defining features, the colors, and then in a minor review, we decide what the colors are.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Yeah, what
that
about
works.
the contrasting design? It's right, or something like that. It's not describing the colors, but basically the shape of them.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, you're deferring, so if you
Yeah, I think
defer the
that's right.
colors until the minor review. And they don't find anything, then it's black and white. I
Yeah.
mean, it's basically what you end up with, so maybe just say. Somehow word it so that you're deferring any color. Any character defining features related to color to the minor review.
I like that.
So I have neon and color to be finalized based on more research to be approved by minor review. Does that
That works, I think that
cover
works.
it? Okay.
But the use of neon is a character defining feature.
Okay. Use of neon. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, Heather had said use of neon within the text, but it's not really,
I think it's
It's
like
like-
generally, right?
yeah,
Just the
just,
use of neon.
and then shape, you know, like the wording you talked about, manual clock and so on. And then there we could say, so we talk about the colors to be decided under the conditions, or do we say it under character defining features?
I was thinking just the character defining feature is colors, right? Just the way that it's organized, but the condition says the actual colors to be finalized.
Mhm. Okay, do you want to give it a shot?
Sure. I will give it a shot. All right.
Hmm.
On the matter of TS-SGN-0524-00002 at 444 East University Boulevard. I move to recommend approval of the project as,
Excuse me, you should probably use the format that she gave us.
yeah, I was just gonna add that in.
Okay, go ahead.
Recommend approval of the project of the time market sign as proposed, meets the performance requirements and cultural guidelines for conditional designation as a replica heritage landmark sign with the following aspects indicated. That the character defining text is time and market, and that the character defining features are the sign shape, the use of neon colors, and the manual clock, and that the treatment plan is accepted subject to the following conditions: that the sign cannot extend above the center of the roof parapet adjacent, it cannot touch the tile roof, it must have a temporary revocable easement for installation aerially in city right-of-way, a sunlink permit for safe installation near the streetcar, that the perimeter profile and the text font and spacing be adjusted to better match the two provided historic photographs, that the actual neon and color to be finalized based on more research and be approved by minor review, that it is to be a double-faced sign with reversed image, that the lettering to be pan-channel letters 3-inch deep with clear faces over the neon, and that the horizontal cantilevered attachment as proposed is acceptable.
For a mounting condition?
Yeah, the horizontal cantilevered mounting condition as proposed is acceptable.
I second the motion.
Okay, hold on. Whoop. Okay, that's great. Any further discussion? That was beautiful, Savannah.
Thanks.
That was
Mhm.
phenomenally cool.
She's
Very
good.
well done. Very well done.
Well,
Do this all the time.
thank
Wow.
you for doing all the kind of the heavy lifting and getting all that verbiage on there to begin with. I appreciate that.
Good. Okay, any further discussion, or should we go ahead and call for the vote? Okay, let me just do something here. Okay. Terry votes aye. Savannah,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Ricky,
Aye.
and who am I missing? Christopher, Andrew.
Aye.
Okay, and Jan not present. Okay, it passes 5-0, and this is very exciting.
Terry?
Yeah.
I would like to assist Ricky on the minor review in this one. Because she does them always, but
Yeah,
That-
fair.
kind of a joke. It's kind of come on, guys.
Oh, you know what? Did we not get in about that conditional, about the sign? Oh, we didn't. About the little sign that has to say it's a reproduction.
Oh, shoot.
That's okay. I can catch that and I can give it as part of the because pardon me, I should have asked to speak. I apologize. As part of this, since it's a replica, I have to provide that information. Where it'll go, it would be probably something that the minor review could cover. Do you need to make a separate motion with that?
What do you think, Jody? Can we just add it to what's on the minor review?
Well, you've already done your motion and voted on it. It's that motion's done. But Heather can add it to her list of conditions.
Okay, is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
And then Heather could say, have them look at this on the minor review as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just so it's covered. Thank you. There's just a lot going on there. Okay, well, thanks, Jude. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everyone. What a great review. So we'll go ahead with 3B.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
So that's 3B is TP-PRE-0524-00121 at 222 South Fifth Avenue. It's options for proposed plaza and shade structures. It's a courtesy review in the Armory Park Historic Preservation Zone. It's a contributing resource, and we use the rehabilitation standards. Jody, do you want to give background on this before we hear the presenter?
Sure. So this project was heard April 16th at Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board, also as a courtesy review. It looks like there were various proposals. The various proposals were discussed by the board. All were pleased with the central west facing location. However, many felt the modernity of the shown forms were not as sympathetic to the historic park as would more classical forms. Options that might reference the arch form of the original band shell and Palladian style window on the early postmodernist 1974 building would be preferred. The team were encouraged to also seek guidance from SHPO since the Beaux-Arts Park has a pending individual listing nomination for the National Register. That's news to me, I haven't heard that before. Mr. Welsh, the project manager for the city, noted that the items that were part of Prop 407 language in the budget, also to be discussed at a later time, will be bathroom improvements, which will require more visibility from the premises. And then it also went to the plans review, the
HLS.
thank you, the Historic Landscape Subcommittee. I sent that around, but to you guys, and that was heard on January 18th. And somewhere in here I have it. In this one, they discussed the master plan. So it was the overall plan and not a site specific for the shade structures. It looks like, sorry, I hadn't looked at this before. It's the fencing and the dog park. There's a lot of information on the dog park. Pretty much it's like not specific to the shade structures. There is discussion about retaining the Beaux-Arts City Beautiful form with paths from the corners, north row of trees, reflecting historic rows of trees. The playground is not fenced. I don't see anything about the shade structures in here. It's more about the space and how they utilize the space for the landscape subcommittee. But you should have gotten copies of that from the January meeting in your email. Can
Yeah, we did right
Okay.
before this meeting.
Okay. So
Thank-
who's presenting or who's showing us what they're thinking of?
Yeah, so I'll start off. My name is Ellie Welch. I'm the project manager with the City of Tucson Parks and Rec Department. And I'll start off here just with a reminder of what is in the Prop 407 bond for this park. That includes new restrooms, new shade over the stage, new benches and picnic tables, renovating the sidewalks and plaza area, and area lighting throughout the park. Jody covered a lot of the other things that I would have said, so I'm going to pass it off to my consultants in ARC Studios and Michael Becker.
Who's sharing their screen, and I'll make you a co-host. Okay, thanks, Michael.
Eric or Elliot, you guys want to give any context?
Yeah, I'll jump in and give a
Yes.
quick context.
Yeah.
So currently we are showing options for the shade sail proposed as part of the master plan that Jody mentioned. In January, we went to the landscape subcommittee and showed the master plan that includes dog parks, removing the existing stage and reforming some of the circulation and walkways. We can go through that at the end of this meeting if anybody wants to see the master plan and some of the elements like the dog park. But currently, right now, Michael's going to share some options for the shade structures over the proposed shade or the proposed stage of this new location.
Oh, let me ask, are you coming back for those other things?
We can, yes.
Okay.
Ultimately, when they opt to do that work, because this is in the HPZ, they'll have to come back through for a
Right.
formal review of that anyways.
Right, I just wanted to be sure that that was happening. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Michael
Eric.
Becker,
I'm
architect.
sorry, this is Michael Becker who's speaking. I'm sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Yes, Michael Becker. I'm an architect and principal with Swaim Associates here in town, and I've been hired by Eric and Matt with ARC Studios to do the architecture portions of the project. And like we said today, we're mostly just talking about some options for the new shade structure. Obviously, you know, Armory Park has a lot of history. A lot has happened to it, both good and bad. So I think we're trying to improve the situation overall. And you know, I'll run through these quickly. I know it's been a long meeting already, so obviously we don't want to take up any more time than we need to. So let me share my screen. Let's see. Start here. There you go. Should be able to see a Google Map images. Okay. Just a quick overview of the park. I think everybody is probably familiar with it. It's, you know, on 6th Street, across the street from the Children's Museum. It's 12th is on the north and 13th is on the south. The park itself is a full block with the Armory Park Center on the west side. I'm sorry, east side. That center was built. There was a pre-existing armory building there that was torn down. This building was built sometime in the 70s. I think Jody's characterization, it is a sort of early, maybe almost proto-postmodern building, fairly basic. So in general, the park has had a series of modifications to it over time. This, if you can see my mouse pointer, this location is where the existing band shell structure is. The center is basically just open concrete right now. One thing that we are going to be stopping from happening is you can see all these cars parked in the middle of the park. So that will not happen anymore once we complete our improvements. And then, as we mentioned, there's several other improvements, including lighting, landscaping, the existing restrooms on the north end of the Armory building. We'll be doing some work on that. So a whole series of other pieces that we'll be doing. We'll be focusing really on this kind of band shell shade structure to start for today. Just kind of share some ideas and options with you. Let me switch the screen that I'm sharing. Let's see. There we go. And just jump in while I'm going. If anybody has any questions, happy to.
Just so you know, so the building is a non-contributor, the park proper is a contributor to the district.
No, that's not what I wanted to share. It is.
Is there a reason why people are parking their cars there now? Like, is there a parking issue or something that's causing that?
It's 110. Closer to 180.
They always park there. I think it's just staff and city employees that just park there because they can't.
Oh, okay.
That's my impression. I don't know, Elliot or Matt, if you guys have any more insight into that.
Years ago, we talked about the parking at some point.
Yeah. So that will be solved. They will not be able to drive into the park anymore once we're done. This understanding.
Another day. Are you doing the parking as part of your redesign?
Matt or Eric?
There was you'll recall probably earlier this year on the south side over there, there was a parking lot enclosure. So there's a fence that'll go around there and they'll have secured parking there. And an increase of parking of what's currently there.
Yeah, to add some additional context, it is staff that's generally parking there, and the recreation staff that run that building, that center. And as part of the scope here, we were looking at adding some staff parking on the northeast side of the block.
These are just some existing context photos. This is the current, band shell that's out there that actually has no shade. It is, fairly large structure. Kind of is what it is. This is, as we were talking about, this is the existing building. This is the west facing facade. So this was the arch that was mentioned. Again, this is a fairly simple mid to late 70s building, stucco, kind of is what it is. This next photograph, this is obviously a historic photograph of the park. You can see the central focus. It's a very simple, sort of diagonal layout to the design. That is the old Carnegie Library in the background. And just some other context. Sorry, my computer is running, not helping me today. There we go. One of my staff, Valerie, found this older photograph when the park was being used for the military. So obviously it was Armory Park and there were military camps there. So the tent structures and things are things that we've been thinking about. Again, starting to look at the history and context, what is it, things that we can draw on to think about form for this new structure. This was the original Armory building. Obviously it's been gone for quite some time. I believe it was torn down probably in the 60s. But it did have an integrated band shell on the west side that you're seeing there. If I scroll down here, you can see, it's still a fuzzy photograph, but kind of the best we could find that shows a little clear image of that band shell. So it was a sort of a quarter sphere, elevated band shell that was integrated to the building. I think at the Armory Park meeting, there's a lot of discussion about this, and someone suggested we just rebuild this. That's obviously not something we can either afford, nor would we recommend doing as far as a new intervention in the park at this time. But using it as a historical reference and how can we, think about the geometry and the presence in the site, I think it's an important precedent. And then this is just, again, a kind of probably a 60s photo of the park. Looks like the rodeo parade is happening. But you can see the overall orientation of the park prior to the construction of the existing senior center. So with that, let me.
Hey, Michael?
Yes.
Was this may be a dumb question, but the band shell was torn down at the same time as the Armory building, right? They didn't leave the band shell there.
Yeah. As far as I know, yeah. As far as I know, it was it was actually part of the building.
Okay.
They tore down the building, they would have torn down the band shell as well. You can see in the photograph, it's pretty clear. It's an integrated part of the original building.
Okay. You never know. Sometimes they leave parts of the building out, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. I've not seen anything that indicates that happened. And it appears the existing band shell was built sometime probably in the 80s. I'm not sure if it was part of the original construction. I didn't see it in the drawings for the senior center. This is just to show, we were looking at just kind of what is going on right now, right? So look around the country, what's happening, different sort of shade structure band shell ideas. These are obviously much more contemporary. I think the upper right image of the bean in Chicago is noteworthy in that, the idea that this is an object in the space to attract people and have activity. A lot of what we're trying to do is energize and activate the park. We know that the parks are much safer spaces when there are people there and people want to use the park. So providing both a focal point and shade, we think are critically important to the success of the park in general as we move forward. And obviously it goes from much more structures like the one in the center that's very much a shade structure, meant for some kind of either dining or events, to the structure next to it on the right here that's more of a abstract sort of art piece that's occupying a space in a park as well. So with that, we will jump into, we have a few different options. We have one that's more or less off the table already, but we want to show it anyway because we've been showing it to other groups and just so everybody kind of sees the same thing on this first pass. Like Jody mentioned, this is a courtesy review. We're going to have to come back probably more than once. I would, as we refine the design, decide, start to narrow in what we want to do. We'll be coming back either to get more advice, and obviously eventually we'll come back for a formal review for the project. This is the first scheme. We're calling this the Blur Pavilion. This plan is oriented, it's been rotated 90 degrees, so north is to the left, just so you know. So this, this where I just drew that red line, that is that south facade of the existing building. This is that center doorway with the arch there. So this is all, the dark gray is all the existing building. We're looking at sort of, maintaining the diagonal axis from the southwest and northwest. So that's going to be maintained and enhanced. The center of the park will be redefined much more clearly. This idea of a pavilion was something that was sort of very simple, it's a square form. It would have kind of a backdrop on it. The intent would be that this could be used for, performances. This is kind of representation of what, some kind of small band might look like in there, but it's to provide enough shade, which would be in this yellow area, to provide an event space, but then some space around it as well that you could have people gathering. We do know a lot of events happen here, speakers happen here, the public, the community does gather here for events, speaking events, things like that. So we want to make sure we can accommodate that. The idea of this pavilion would be create kind of an upper piece of this that would be sort of a transparent or translucent box that would let light through. You could see the structure of it. So it's a very contemporary form, very expressive of its structure. This is a kind of sketch of what that might start to look like. This one has, like I said, this is the one that's essentially been put on the back burner at this point. People felt this was a little too contemporary, but the idea being that we would, have some simple structural elements along the east side, some deeper, the box itself is actually a cantilevered beam so that there would be no supports on the front of this pavilion, so that as people are performing in this space, the public would get a clear view from the gathering space in front of it. The kind of translucent panel that you're seeing here would be some kind of a mesh material that would be, you could sort of see through it, but it would shimmer. It's the idea of the blur, that maybe this thing kind of, as the light changes, it could sort of almost vanish at different times. So that was our, that was, to be honest, this was like my first knee-jerk drawing something, get something on paper. So, which I always have to do so that I can then like draw the next one. I got to get the assumptions out of my head. So that was just the basic idea behind this first concept. The second one is looking at something much simpler. We called it the what we're calling the Reach Pavilion. We do have a budget, obviously, with this. So this is a much simpler structure, similar space. So it is in the center of the park. And that seems to be, the consensus is that having it sort of where the original band shell was makes sense. Having it oriented to the west makes sense. But how we create that space, what that thing looks like is really kind of where we're at now. So again, the yellow space is the shaded area of that. You can see the little band in there could play. This is more of a full cantilever. So we would have a series of columns across the east side of it with a full cantilever. Again, that idea that you have a completely open free span on the west side. So this could really function as a stage for certain events. It could also, you could put tables and chairs under here, and it could serve as shade during the day. People could have lunch here, so it could have multiple functions. In the elevation, we were shaping the edge of this a little bit. One of the suggestions from Armory Park is maybe we reverse that curve and have it kind of curve up like this. And then it begins to give you that sort of echo of the original band shell with the domed shape to it. So that's something that we're exploring as well, is, what simple things can we do just to modify this geometry in a way that then it can have some connection to the past, but at the same time, it's still a contemporary intervention in the park. Whoa, that was sorry, my mouse can be very sensitive sometimes. There we go. And then this would be, again, the kind of sketch of that. Like I was saying, you can see where that curve is. We could simply reverse that curve and, create at least some of that geometry in that way. This is, like I said, it's a full cantilever structure, so these are fairly straightforward. And this is probably, closer to the more affordable option that we're looking at right now, but certainly not. We haven't decided on anything, and what we may eventually doing might be something completely different, which is why we're here today. So that is what we're calling the Reach Pavilion, because it's reaching out to the community. And then the third one, which these are the ones we had prepared for Armory Park meeting, is what we're calling the Tent Pavilion. Again, looking at those older photographs of the military encampments there, how can we use that tent form to start to create a structure? So it's basically creating more of a square shape, but rotating it, so it's a diamond shape. We would have 3 points of structure. So again, we would get that clear opening on the west side, as we were talking about. And then the structure would sort of rise from east to west. So the east point here would be the lowest point of the roof structure. The western point would be the highest point of the roof structure, and it opens to the west, again, acting as a band shell or a stage. You start to think about the proscenium of a stage, the opening, and how you frame a performance that happens in that space. And this would be the sketch of that. This seemed at this point to be kind of the preferred approach, either this one or the previous one. I think Armory Park thought this was fairly compelling. They did comment, they would like to see, you can see the representation of the old arch on this side. How can we begin to be maybe more sympathetic to that? I think we do need to be somewhat, but at the same time, I'm not sure the senior center is the best architectural precedent to be drawing the new form from. It is, as Jody mentioned, it is not a contributor. And, it's not the best building. So I think as we think about this pavilion, what do we want the park to be? Sort of being in context with what's there, but I don't really want to be a slave to some of what happened in the 70s, to be honest, but certainly open to have that conversation. The last one I'm going to show kind of came out of the conversations at Armory Park. Again, sort of talking about how can you just do the dome again? And I don't know. What I thought is, what if we really do a dome, right? What does that look like? So I came up with a very simple structure. Again, it has 2 structural supports. It would be a quarter dome that would span over the top of that similar space. That circle right there is kind of the circle of the dome itself that would cover and create that shade for the band or for lunch or dining or other things. It would sort of sit in the center of the park. It clearly has that dome shape. Let me zoom in there a little bit so you can see the drawing a bit better. Although, unlike the original dome, which was sort of rotated back behind the performer, this one would be rotated forward to actually provide shade. Because I think, again, as we're thinking about working in the center of this park for an event space that we want the community to use, we have to provide shade, and it has to be a functional structure. So I don't think the original form actually works for the desert very well. I mean, it is very clear Beaux-Arts form, but I think some of that was absent of the environmental context. So I think trying to take that form and transform it into something that then is contemporary, but again, it has that kind of link to the past, I think could be really interesting. This is just a kind of series of sketches that I did as I was thinking about this idea. I took that photograph of the original shell and just kind of did some off-the-cuff measurements on that, just trying to determine how big that thing really was, assuming these doors are 7 to 8 feet tall. I think that original dome was probably 22 feet, so 44 feet in diameter. So that's the dimension that I've been using for this diagram of the structure. This would be a section through that so you can kind of understand what it's doing. And then this is a really quick little 3D representation just for me to study the geometry of it, to see if this thing would actually work. We're talking to some different manufacturers. Some people make domes, or whether it's geodesic domes, there's different ways to do this. This is probably the least affordable option, to be honest. But we felt pretty strongly about it. That we at least want to explore this a little bit, because I think something feels good about this to us. But obviously we're here to get your feedback on all of this. So that, I think, yeah, that's everything I've got.
Okay,
Happy to
yeah.
answer questions. Yeah.
Do you want to start, go back a few and start with, so that first one is kind of out of the picture because of the cost and
I think it just, a lot of people have felt it's probably a little too out of context. I happen to like it a great deal. I think it could be a really cool thing, but I certainly understand that.
yeah. Okay, so that's the folks. What are your thoughts on the Blur Pavilion?
Like, I like it, but I understand why the neighborhood doesn't like it. It is very contemporary. Yeah. So, I mean, it's functionally like pretty dead after everybody else's comments. Like, so.
Yeah. Anyone else, or do we agree with Army Park on this one?
Well,
It's not the
what
right
were their
place for it.
specific, can you go over their specific complaints about about it?
I'm not sure there was specific complaints, and actually one of the members, she actually liked it a great deal, but they ended up preferring the other 2 schemes. They have not seen the dome scheme yet, because that came up after we met with them. So, but they certainly, I think as a group, they preferred the tent pavilion. I think in looking at the 3 options, other than one member that was there, I think most of them were kind of like, yeah, it's cool, but you know how John Burr is. He's like, eh.
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
look.
that the
Go ahead.
curves of the other one kind of make it a little bit more appealing then.
I'm sorry?
Like the curves that are featured in the other, or the different angles, I think make it a little more inviting.
Yeah, and that's what they had said as well. Like this, again, if we reverse the curve or think about how to sort of echo that older geometry, they like that a lot. And I'm not sure, I don't know, Elliot or Matt, if you guys remember, I just had in my notes that they had a preference for this one, but I can't remember exactly why.
This one reminds me of the Reed Park sales.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about this one? And if you go to the plan, do people enter this building via those stairs? Is this, I mean, are most people coming in from the other side of the
The
to the
primary
building?
entrance to this building is the east side. So this is really this is really emergency egress. We will be building, you know, there is a substantial grade difference actually. You don't notice it when you're out there, but we've got about, you know, 1.5 to 2 feet from the finished floor here to out here. So as you exit the building, we'll be building some new accessible ramps. We thought we would keep that symmetrical with a couple of sort of planting boxes on either side and then a short stair in the center. I've got to resolve that conflict. I just realized I have with the column there. So
And that's why I asked. I didn't know if that stair was existing.
it is not.
Okay.
So you know, we could split the stair and widen it, you know, have a handrail down the center, and then that probably integrates a little bit better depending on how we handle the structure. The
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
option would be to look at structuring this. Maybe we could get rid of that column. You know, a 2-point structure is difficult, but not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me in the context of the building, not landing a column right in the middle of the main, you know, the main axis, the main kind of like
Yeah.
symmetry point.
Fair
That
point.
was off-putting for me. I like the idea of the tent and how it recalls history a little bit, and trying to find a new, you know, kind of new vision or take on that. But this one just seemed like it was rotated disrespectfully to the existing building.
So I'm just off the
But
top of my head, we could, you know, split that column potentially. Maybe there's a column here and here, and that one
yeah,
goes away, right? And then this whole thing opens up again, which that would actually be much better.
that'd be cool. Yeah, I think for, you know, you'll have events here, people will gather here, but on a daily basis, it's kind of a porch to the building to some extent, right? Like it's just kind of where people might be. But if you're saying that people aren't coming in and out of that building on this side very much,
Yeah.
then maybe it's not that. But I'm just trying to like understand that connection with the building a little bit more.
The building's changed over time. I think that used to be an open arcade, and then it was enclosed at some point. So I think it's probably used more in the past, but since they enclosed it, that's like a dining room or something in there now. So again, it's no longer an entrance to the building. It's really an egress. That doesn't mean it'll stay that way, right? I mean, building functions change all the time. So I would agree with you. We don't want to do anything that would prohibit that from being an entrance.
And Michael, this is Joel Ireland. Which of these do you like, and tell me why?
So I am pretty careful. I'm not showing you anything that I wouldn't be excited about doing. I'm being honest. Yeah. You know, I think, yeah, it's hard to, it's like telling me to pick my favorite child, right? Although I guess we always have one, but
But you can't say.
although I only have one, so I guess
Easy.
children. But you know, I really liked the first one because it was that impulse idea of mine. I think this one's pretty strong. I'm not terribly excited about this. It's although it may be the one we can afford, right? So there's all these things that we're
Showing on screen now?
What's that?
The one you're showing on screen now?
Yeah, this may be, you know, if I were to rank them, this would be my last. This would be my lowest. I think, you know, this one I think could be really great. And I think tying it to this idea of the tent, you know, to the history of the site in that way. So it just does it in a very different way. And then this one, you know, it's more literal, but it's not literal, which I like. We just have a lot of work to do on this to see if it's something we can even do. But I think this could be really cool. This feels more like the idea of the bean in Chicago, or something it's an object, but it's contextual in a way that I think could work really well. So, you know, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, fair enough.
Bring the bean to
I have a favorite child. I do.
I have a question. It's like a conceptual thing with that triangle or what is that? It's like a square. It's a square. That one.
Yeah.
Yes. I know they want to curve. Is there any way in like that back part, like that part could be like curved and then it's kind of like a cone. Like it's still pointed at the front, but the back part goes into a curve.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you
I don't
could
know.
do, actually, just saying that made me think that maybe the structure isn't pointed, it becomes curved, it becomes a kind of parabola, right? So you
Mhm.
get that curve on the top of it again. Something, if I'm kind of mapping it out, it starts to do something like that.
Because this one seems to provide like a good amount of shade.
It does, yeah. I think the rotated orientation helps with that, particularly the western sun, because you get that peak that's going to come out here that's going to help, keep the shade kind of where you want it.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to have, we've got the landscaping and the trees that are in the park, so we feel pretty good about this space. It's, like most places in Tucson, it's, it'll be difficult to have a big gathering in the middle of the summer day, but certainly, other times of the year. And then even in the evenings, as the sun comes down, it pretty quickly gets behind the tree line. So I think, overall this would function pretty well.
Well, and it leaves more open space that used to be there that was probably even like a parade ground almost,
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, I like the schemes that have this kind of cantilevered, overreaching effect. It's very like kind of inviting and welcoming generally as a gesture. So this one, I like the second one too.
this one,
This one and the one before it.
This one.
Is this the one, Savannah?
Yeah, I like both of them. But I mean, I like the third one too, or sorry, the last one. It seems challenging to pull off, but that seems like a fun, it seems like a fun challenge.
Yeah, it does.
but I think they're going to find out pretty soon whether they can even do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think part of what we're looking for, is there anything here that's like, no, is there a hard no somewhere in here? Or, and just as importantly, is there something about our approach that you disagree with? Or in general, is the consensus that of the commission that we're sort of on the right track, obviously need to continue to develop these and then in parallel with our budget?
I would say that. I mean, I really am not as fond of that first one because I think it's too busy. I mean, what's nice about that's way too busy
Okay.
for me. I think they're right. And the Armory Park folks didn't like it. It's a very cool structure, but it's just not. And then I think that, let's see, that second one, they weren't keen on that one, or they were keen on it.
They were okay with it. I
Yeah.
think, again, they're asking for some change. Excuse me. For some changes, just to tweak it a little bit, but I didn't hear an outright objection to this one.
Mhm.
They felt maybe it was a little utilitarian. I think somebody thought maybe it looked a little too much like a gas station canopy or something like that. But some of that comes to detailing. If we have a nice delicate level of detailing, that won't be as prevalent.
Right.
It is a
And
cantilever structure, though. There's a certain thing about the structural form that it's just what it is.
What about questions of putting a stage down there? I mean, like when you go to like the street fair or something, they set up these temporary things, and the stage is always 2 or 3 feet higher than the street level. Did we give consideration to that? What these structures would look like with a 3-foot stage under them, or?
Yeah, we generally the consensus was we didn't want to provide a permanent elevated stage here to provide the most flexibility, because it really won't be used for events 90% of the time.
Yeah.
If there are events where they do want a stage, we are providing enough height where you could put in a 2-foot riser to be able to get that elevation for the performer, but it would be more on an event by event basis, so that during its normal operation, it would be at grade. So it would be more accessible and more useful in general. That was the kind of approach for that.
This
Thanks.
one feels we have like shade structures in town that look like this.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, this like feels the least contemporary out of all of them, and I understand why people like that it's so simple, but I think if we're going for this mixture of like appreciating what was there and what is there and bringing a little contemporary flair to it, this is not, I don't get as much of that with this as I do with the third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of cool because, and I guess it depends on where the door placement is. Like coming out of those doors, if you were to come out of those doors, you have this kind of like look up at the over horizon type of a deal.
Yeah, as you walk out this door. Obviously, this drawing is not correct because I've shown these doors at the same elevation. This is actually
Right, it's higher. Yeah, it's like you showed before. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of like this one too, and I really like the last one, but I think you really have to determine if that's even doable financially and otherwise.
Yep.
This is Andrew. I think one thing I'm reacting to here is I think in all of them, it feels like we're crowding the elevation of that building a lot, and in some cases kind of like turning our backs to it, which I get that it's not a primary, functionally a primary elevation of the building, but I think it does have a lot of presence in the park, and that feels a little odd to me. So I question maybe the placement of this in general in that close to the building, and I wonder maybe if it might work if it was slid to the west more, and it could take advantage of, it could kind of bookend that plaza so that the space between the building and the shade structure kind of becomes that activated space during concerts or events or things like that. And, you know, maybe with the elevation change and the reworked entry of that building, maybe there's the opportunity to kind of have some, you know, some larger drawn out, like stepping things that can act as like informal seating and things like that. So that's kind of the main reaction I have to it. In terms of the form, I think a lot of, you know, several of them have their strengths. I don't know that there's one that I'm immediately drawn to over the others, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, do you have any other questions for us, Michael, or is that helpful in any way?
No, this is helpful. It gives me some confidence, you know, we can develop these. You know, I appreciate Andrew's comments. You know, we made some assumptions based on some other things. So I think, you know, always keeping our mind open to, you know, what does it mean if we move it? You know, what does that all mean? So I appreciate that. But in general, I appreciate everyone's comments. And obviously we'll be back, you know, to discuss this some more.
Yeah, thank you, for the creative ideas, certainly.
Thanks, yeah. I mean, it's a super exciting project. We're really thrilled to be part of it. So I don't know, Eric or anyone else have Elliot or Matt, anything?
I would say we can't thank you enough for going into this level of detail and study to come up with the different concepts, Michael. It's been a pleasure trying to develop something, knowing it's maintaining an open space was kind of a critical component from what we heard from historic representatives of the park, and so we're just trying to make sure we're staying on top of that and seeing how we can then incorporate a new stage or a new canopy to address shade and other centralizing of the park itself. So I just want to thank you again for everything you've done for it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. This is the fun stuff.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Great.
All right, thanks again, Michael. Thank you. Okay. So let's move to item 4, which is public and institutional use in a development zone discussion. 4A is discussion on the use of public and institutional buildings as comparative properties in development zones. We did have our full quorum and then Jan had to leave. Is everyone okay with carrying this over to another possible time when we have 6?
Yes.
Yes, but I also wonder, like, are we ever going to have that? Because this is like almost into the 3rd month of just waiting for all of us to be here.
Well, I don't know. I think Jan, with her situation with her husband and his doctor's appointments, we can't predict all the time. So, I mean, we can start now. or-
She's the one that is kind of spearheading this too. Like I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, it would
Like,
be
I
odd.
think it should be when Jan's here, but like I'm gonna miss one in August. And like if it has to happen without me, that's okay.
Yeah.
I can
Well,
always follow up with Jan after, but I just
Yeah.
don't want to push it so far that things start happening and we still haven't discussed it yet.
right. Well, maybe we can do, you're gonna be gone, you're gonna be back for the next one in July, right? And we don't know yet what's coming.
Yes. Let's go swimming. Sorry.
So, all right. So, anyway, let's move on. Item 5 then, task force on inclusivity report recommendations. 5A is discussion on best practices for naming city and county owned physical assets. And we also have to deal with this one this summer and get it off our plates. So I saw something about something being renamed, and so, you know, we really need to get this out there. Item 6 is current issues for information discussion. 6A is minor reviews. Michael, do you have an update for us?
Yes, Madam Chair. Since we met the last time, I believe we have done 2 minor reviews. And thank Ricky for always helping me on this. We did one at 827 North 4th, which was for a roof. That was kind of an emergency that we needed to do it that day. Because the applicant was getting angry. Ricky was kind enough to step up and help us with that one.
That one was just the like for like. There wasn't anything like it was a roof shingle that was getting repaired, but there wasn't anything extra on that.
And
So-
then okay, go ahead.
Right?
Well, sorry, Terry, you cut off.
It wasn't a problem. It was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
The next one, which we did and came back again, back and forward, was at 620 North 6th Avenue. Really, this one is the one that we did for the fence and gate, where almost at the end of the review, he said he wanted to include the gate in the review.
Yeah. That one we're still waiting on the changes to the plans, right?
Yes, we're still waiting for.
Okay. Yeah, Rick and I talked about this. I mentioned last time that had gone through review and then he wanted a 7-foot wall and decided in the middle of the review that he also wanted to add a gate. So we were waiting for the plans to get changed. She did submit his gate, but it's a bamboo gate, which is not something that's normal in West University. And we also requested some things be taken off of the plans because the plans reference what was previously not approved. That is some permitting issues that were there. So we're just asking that be taken off so it doesn't look like we're approving something that we're actually not.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, do you have upcoming reviews, Michael?
Yeah, then I have the pending one at 350 South Convent for that door, which is still pending. We'll report back to you as soon as the applicant gets back to us. It's already been reviewed. Ricky and Grace gave direction as to what the applicant needed to do. So I'm waiting on the applicant at that one. I have about 5 of them which are pending now. One at 345 South 4th, which is a solar panel in Avery Park. 827 North 4th, which is a fence and gate in West University. I have 5396 East Francisco Loop, which is a solar panel in Fort Law. And I have the sign in downtown, which is 130 East Congress. This sign we're waiting for the applicant, the sign contractor to be available. And then the last one is 502 East 4th Street for a door. So I need kind of volunteer so that when they're ready, I can just call. Or I can send an email whenever they are ready.
That's my best thing. Okay,
What
and
was
Rick,
that, Terry?
Michael, this is Joel. I'm out of town until after next week, but anything after that, I'm, pretty free.
Okay,
I'm also unavailable to do reviews between the 13th and the 21st.
noted. Thank you. That will end the minor review section.
thank you. What about 6B appeal?
We do not have any pending at this point in time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. 6C is zoning violations.
We are still working with Rick to bring all the zoning violations to you. That's all I can report for now.
Okay, and 6D is review process issues. Does anyone want to raise any review process issue?
So earlier, Jan was requesting, a text when I wanted to clarify, a text when we send out information last minute. Did I understand that correctly?
That's what I think she said, and in both cases, I'm available and I can help you with those texts unless you can create a group text with everyone's cell.
Oh, because I don't know that I have.
I thought she just
Phone
said
numbers.
enough notice, like just
No, she said
enough
text.
time.
The
Yeah.
time.
She said text.
If it does get out
Okay.
the same day, I think because she just checks her emails periodically, so she didn't see until she went to log on to the meeting that we had.
And one was very, very recent, but I think I could send the cell numbers that I have for everybody, if everyone's okay with that. So Jody could send us a group text.
Does
Would
that, does Jody have to text us individually? Because does that break the open meeting law if she has a group text with all of us in it?
I'm not sure. I
That is a good question. Very forward thinking there. I don't know.
Sorry to
About that, because I'm not a voting member, so I think I can text all of you. You can't make it a group chat and respond to me. I mean, and normally we don't have stuff. I mean, Armory Park, we ask for the meeting minutes pretty regularly after the meeting, and they're usually kind of slow to get them to us, so it's become like this that we get it the day of. And I know that you like to have them, which is why we send those out. But I can try to text you.
Well, or I can help you, maybe you can check on if you can do that. And if not, just let me know. And usually this morning I was, because I had to take a long trip to the airport and drop someone off. But, yeah. I get her point, but I mean, the rest of us are on, right?
Yeah.
So we're more likely to see it. But Joel, do you check your text that often? He's shaking his head. So let's just, because that's not really that normal, Jody, that you would send that stuff out at the last minute anyway, right?
No, I mean, it's not normal that we send it out that last minute. But I mean, I could look into the text, but I did send it via email. So I mean, the email is how most of the time we communicate with you.
Yeah, and basically you could just, I could see that and then I could text her. I mean, if, because I don't want to put all that on you, because if the rest of you are okay with just looking at your emails.
Oh, I have Jan's number.
Yeah. So.
Text her, yeah.
Okay, do you want me to send you everyone's numbers? Jody?
You can, I mean, it's always good for me to have them, for hassling purposes, but that's up to you.
Yeah. Okay, so.
The information that we get from the city clerk isn't always current either.
Oh, could Jody just have them? Because like the meeting that you weren't here, we did need to call somebody and we didn't have their number when we were waiting for a quorum. So I guess
I will
definitely precautionarily if we're in a situation like that.
I will do that. I will send them all the ones that I have, and I think I have everybody's because I've texted you all. Okay. Any other review process issues? Okay, if not, Jody, were there any public comments received by the deadline?
There was no.
Okay, future agenda items for upcoming meetings, it's item 8, our next meeting is July 25th. What do you have for us, Jody?
We should have a courtesy review for the new construction at Euclid and Speedway. And potentially a demo. Those are the two that I know about right now. There may be more. But I don't have that for you because I am still plowing through my email.
Okay, that sounds good. Any questions about future agenda items, folks? No? Okay. All right, thanks all for your patience, and that sign review seemed like it was longer. Maybe it's because we haven't done one for a while. But thanks for that, Savannah. We always force you to do those motions. Okay. So anyway, take care, everyone, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
I already said it.
Bye.
Bye.
Where is that? Where is
The city Wi-Fi does not work.